Hold up, I ain't trying to stump, man, but the Yeezys jumped over the jump, man. I be in and out of arenas like I'm Scottie Pippen.
Left my elbow in the pot, a la Vince Carter.
Bitch, you weren't with me shooting in the gym?
James Harden with the range on me, nigga, way back.
Coach, they won't knock me off my pivot, get it.
Been flowing stupid since Vince Carter was on some through the legs arm and a hoop shit.
And you can live through anything if magic made it.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know, now you do.
Yes, sir. We are back. Round of applause for yourselves. This is your guy, Marcellus Ease, and my oh my, the NBA season never ends. Storylines galore. What's going on with the coverage of the WNBA? There's been a clash between not only WNBA players, but their media members versus the rest of the sports landscape. And due to that landscape being so male-dominated, guys have to walk on eggshells when hot topics like Caitlin Clark now making Team USA comes up. But we'll take a look at some of those dynamics as well as the financials of the WNBA, as it does not reflect the social media branding as well as support of the product. And Shaquille O'Neal calls out JJ Redick's bluff on not speaking to LeBron James about his coaching hire. The three-time NBA Finals MVP gives great insight to how much power really comes with being the captain of the Los Angeles Lakers. The NFL continues to approach on the NBA Christmas Day games, with multiple games hitting Netflix simultaneously broadcast on local television. We'll get great insight on Netflix's true business model going forward as they move away from subscription-based into the advertising game. And finally, Jalen Brunson sets the precedent with this new CBA. Brunson now has put the onus on superstars throughout the NBA who always state they're about championships. Are they willing to take the necessary steps and even going as far as taking a pay cut to stand behind their words? Now, with the WNBA steadily rising up in the past few years, and now with Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese joining them, there is going to be a level of scrutiny with the brand new eyeballs. And the current day sports media loves to cover men's sports from a toxic perspective, especially the NBA, pinning players against each other like Jason Tatum and Jalen Brown when they had first joined the Celtics. Same thing for Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, etc., etc. And a lot of inner nuances are at play here. The social media algorithms feeding off of negativity and trolling and people going back and forth, and the constant reality that the WNBA is a league that is still growing. They only have 40 games a year, 12 teams currently at the moment. The season is only 4.5 months. And the NBA right now is currently negotiating a deal to get into streaming, which relies on customers subscribing for 12 months out of the year. And to only have content for about 4.5 months, you see where the WNBA has plenty of room to grow to fill in that space. But again, they are a growing league. And for those of you watching the visual version, as you can see here, even with the addition of Caitlin Clark on the Indiana Fever, they are still worth more than the Los Angeles Sparks, Atlanta Dream, Dallas Wings, and hell, even the Connecticut Sun, being a team in the tri-state area of New York City. And the most expensive teams are only sitting at $140 million, the Vegas Aces, the Seattle Storm at $135, and the New York Liberty at $130 million. So there's still plenty of room for the league to grow. And each team only has a salary cap of about $1.4 million. So when we see the WNBA commissioner, Kathy Engelbert, make statements that the WNBA shouldn't be negotiating their own TV deal outside of the NBA, things tend to get a bit tricky, because that is with the understanding that currently in this season, even with the Caitlin Clark boost, they are still on pace to lose about $50 million. So the WNBA is in this tricky position with social media and just this image they're portraying in the media that the league is strong. And of course, the women are strong, but you're still going to have to deal with the financials of the reality. And sometimes the WNBA does fall into the rabbit hole of being sort of a movement-led league. You don't want to do that to your consumer base, because the casuals are really there just for the entertainment value. They don't want to be told which movements they should join and what to support. That's a huge issue for the league, because in social media, it is trendy right now for the girls to say the league is just as strong as the guys and they should make the same amount of money. when in reality, just the budget alone to fly all the girls this season private is $25 million, which is double the budget combined for every WNBA team's salary. So the sports media coverage with the WNBA kind of gets a bit shaky. It's like they're treading the lines with trying to provide an entertaining value to debate what's going on in the WNBA, along with trying not to step on the toes of the players who've been there before. But this exact scenario played out with Monica McNutt and Stephen A. Smith. You guys check it out, and every once in a while, I'll check in.
Talking about them maximizing their great potential. And because we bring that up and talk about what potentially might get in their way, which we do to men all the time, now we got to sit up here and watch every syllable. I resent that, and I'll leave it at that.
All right, so let me, I know we got to go to break. Welcome to the world of being a woman, Stephen A., and how you have to dance about your word choice and you have to please everybody and anybody as you navigate your being. We are talking about the world's greatest
How about being a black man?
Being black. Hold on 1 second.
Have you?
So this is what I'm saying to y'all, though, and I know we got to go to break, and we didn't necessarily go there, and maybe we should. There are so many layers in this conversation around the way that it's being discussed. When you no. And yes, Shannon, I know y'all are gonna say and Stephen A., I know you just shared that you have talked about the WNBA on your program too. You guys may not have said everybody, but the prevailing sentiment for folks that are just joining the WNBA and following women's sports is unfair to the women of this league, to your point, who have laid the groundwork for Caitlin Clark to come in and now take it to the next level. That's all I'm saying in these conversations. Kennedy Carter's behavior is not indicative of the entire league. We are still talking about competition where you are allowed to get a little extra elbow in if you are competing and you do it within the parameters of the game. The game is physical. Caitlin is helping to grow the league. These women understand that, but she cannot be babied as a rookie. That's all I'm at.
All right.
Who talks about the WNBA? Who talks about women? Who talk about women's sports more than First Take?
Stephen A., respectfully, with your platform, you could have been doing this 3 years ago if you wanted to.
Wow.
Monica's 100% right about that. But as you can see, the major sports networks are used to covering, especially men's sports, from such a toxic angle that they cannot shake that off when they're touching base with the females. And being that the sensitive era that we're in, it's a very thin line they got to tread. And for the people that are already in that WNBA community, whether covering the game, whether people directly involved within that organization, they're going to have to deal with the annoyance of the influx of the casuals. They don't want to fall into the trap of gatekeeping their own league, especially due to the fact that it's growing. Keep in mind, the most historical WNBA franchise, the Houston Comets, no longer exists, and that's due to financial reasons. But after this segment went viral, Monica McNutt further elaborated on what went on behind the scenes and what led to some of the sentiments that she felt. You guys check it out, and every once in a while, I'll check in.
If this becomes a moment where folks are a little bit more mindful, then fine, purpose served, right? Like, I got a ton of texts from folks that have covered the WNBA, men, women, like, of support. And it wasn't for me. This is why this whole thing has blown my mind, Bo, because it truly wasn't, in that moment, it was not about checking and winning a debate. It was a legitimate question, right? This space has grown. So many people have just joined the space that weren't here 3 years ago. Now, we could get into the minutia of nobody cared 3 years ago. The ratings weren't there 3 years ago. And I'm not going to say that the ratings are wrong. But like I said, I've been in it long enough to know that folks were asking for opportunities to help bring in a new audience, and they just weren't giving them, right? And so this is why, like, again, in this conversation, I would never part my lips to say that Caitlin Clark is not a huge phenomenon and great for the sport. But I'm also going to tell you that there's a rookie curve, that there are other great women in this league that deserve coverage, and that you should not be trying to dictate how to compete. The league's been standing for 28 years. Like, these women know how to compete at a high level. And you're just trying to be. We're on the show to debate. I'm debating. I asked a question. I still don't necessarily have the answer to said question. And genuinely, it wasn't a dig. It was a legitimate question. So we're all learning together. I hope more people are interested in having listening ears, not just conversations, but having their listening ears on in those conversations.
Stephen A. Smith playing the company man role because he understands that he cannot admit that they were approached in previous years to talk about the WNBA and the bosses were not having it because it doesn't correlate to the ratings. And networks like ESPN pander and do all these ads talking about we're pro this and pro that. But for the most part, on the business side and the back end, if that was really the case, a lot of these WNBA games will have primetime slots, not necessarily being bundled in with the NBA in their previous deals. But again, there's a very nuanced dance that has to happen in a very particular way when discussing women's sports right now, especially with the first take and undisputed debate culture. And the women may have to develop tougher skin as the men do, because that debate culture is very toxic. And a prime example of these networks trying to toe that line is the criticism that owners like James Dolan receive from the New York Knicks versus Jeannie Buss with the Los Angeles Lakers. They keep quiet on Jeannie, but the reality is that she is fucking up on the basketball side when it comes to the Lakers. But they're holding those criticisms in because she's a woman. A lot of those arrows get directed in Rob Pelinka's way. But Rob Pelinka in reality can't do what he do without Jeannie Buss signing off on it.
If you had put out a WNBA primer 3 years ago, your audience might have been like, what are we doing? And you are in a position to serve your audience. And that's fine. But you just articulated that to me and we could discuss it, right? And you could say to me, Man, I think you're a little too close to this because I know that you've been pushing, but so much of media is what is the audience responding to? I've been in TV, I'm a TV professional, like I can hear that, right? And I think what I have had to grapple with as we've tried to grow this sport is how much of it is you have not fed it to the audience versus the audience doesn't want it. Because it's not like I'm saying that 2 hours of morning television should be about this topic. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying that there was room and there was opportunity. Now, the other part of that is that question came from a place of, oh, y'all trying to talk to me like I'm stupid. Like this is the leader on women's sports all of a sudden. Okay, well, let me just double check how long we've been doing this, right? And so as we move through these conversations, to your point, Bo, I've been watching the league this year. Beautiful. I started watching the league last year. Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese brought me to the league. Beautiful. But let's just be honest. And I think Rebecca Lobo said it when we did a segment on Get Up this week, like have people on that know, because it's an opportunity to educate. And because, again, we talk about our societal totem pole. Women, mostly Black women, queer women, you've got a lot of pieces that are charged, and there should be a mindfulness that comes as you are new here. That's all. And now I know somebody will be like, oh, it's just sports, but you can say whatever you want about the men. Men can do a lot of things that women don't get a chance to do. Like, what y'all want me to do? That's just where we are as society.
So a lot of her criticisms there are right, but that should be directed towards the network. They seem to have an already working formula, which you can see they took out baseball from it. It's mostly NFL and NBA on these sports debate shows. And unfortunate for many corporations, once they do have that formula down packed, they become tunnel vision. And by the time they look up, it's already too late. New entities will arise and kind of take their place and start new trends. But again, these type of conversation with mostly a male-dominated sports media is going to be very nuanced. And Monica sat down with Carmelo Anthony, which a lot of the NBA players have a better understanding of what some of the women are going through. But there is an overall message that they do try to convey, that this is mostly a business first before basketball. As the hot topic of Caitlin Clark not being selected on the Olympic team came about, Melo speaks to Monica about it, but he sort of also reminds her that this is a business and that they did let Christian Laettner on that Olympic team with Michael Jordan down in Barcelona. You guys check it out, and every once in a while, I'll check in.
The thing about it, though, I think if you talk to those women, they're fine.
Facts.
Like, we are rookies in a league that we respect. It's all the outside noise that has been sort of nauseating to a degree. But they get it. Angel said in her Vogue drop that she was going pro. Like, I'm excited to play against the best. Kayla has said it. Like, the Olympic team is the best team in the world. Like, it's a goal of mine to make it. I'm fine not being on it. Like, it's all this other stuff. So Melo, give me your honest thing, right? Because this is the first time in this conversation that I have kind of sat in the middle. I'm like, the women's team has been so dominant. The 12th player was not going to make a difference.
Yeah, no.
But I totally respect merit and that being people's career aspiration and dream.
Yes.
And if I seen somebody get the nod just off of marketing and following, I would feel a type of way too.
Yeah.
So for you, right, knowing how competitive that is, in Caitlin's case, she hasn't been able to attend the camps and stuff. She was playing in college still, right? So she doesn't have that camaraderie. Do you think it was a miss by Team USA?
I think to the word that you use, marketing.
Okay. Oh,
like your favorite word.
See, Melo is much smoother. He's kind of letting her know with a lot of grace, like, hey, this is a business. The marketing is important.
Your favorite word, right? We talk about, like, the women's U.S. national team has been dominant forever. Whether who come on that team or not, that team is going to always be dominant. So now what happens is you have the domination and you also have the eyeballs now, right? So now we talk about growing this game, this sport globally, right? Now they both meet at one of the higher stages in basketball, in sports, right? Whether you play or not, it should be an honor. You get what I'm saying? Y'all gonna win.
Yeah.
You're gonna get better, right? You going to that and just taking that role or taking that job or taking that 12 spot, you're gonna learn so much from that. Like we had AD as a rookie. We had a Mecca Okafor in 04 as a rookie. You know what I mean? Like we Carlos Bull, like we were the young guys. We didn't play in 04.
But again, that's the marketing for your future stars for the NBA. And especially for the athletic wear companies, Nike, Adidas, Reebok. The Olympics is mainly a marketing ploy for those companies along with the NBA. The way it went down with Michael Jordan in Barcelona, that proved to be very pivotal, as a lot of the international stars that came into the league always pointed to that Olympic event as their first time seeing Michael Jordan live. So the exposure and marketability is undeniable.
Like we was last editions because nobody else wanted to come. KG, Barron, all those guys, they backed out.
Okay, so let's unpack this then.
Yeah.
Because obviously you were an elite competitor, you're talented enough to be on that team, but considering all of that stuff, if we tie that back to this conversation, if Caitlin were to get the nod and she didn't earn it basketball-wise, isn't that disrespectful to a degree?
I can see that, yeah.
Right?
It can come off as disrespectful, but it's like what we want, guys. Like what
they want the check. The girls want to fly private. Come on. At the end of the day, are you guys trying to make money not only for yourselves, but for the future young girls that will come into the league? They could be making 10, 12, $50 million instead of the whole team having a salary cap of $1.4 million. I mean, the private plane bill for all 12 teams is double the salary cap for the entire league. So there's still room to grow.
We want
it's like a double-edged sword.
Like, yeah. We want this to be the biggest shit ever. And it's going to be because it's just the domination of the U.S. women's team. But now you get a whole nother conversation. Right. And I think that what people are afraid of is if she don't play. Right? If she don't play. Because she's a competitor. So she's gonna enjoy the moment. As if she don't play, the noise that everybody is gonna have to deal with on the team, USA, on the road, it's a lot of shit to deal with.
And that's also due to the nature of the toxic media coverage. Everything is politicized. The polarization of the American political landscape has trickled down into sports and all aspects of American society. And the nature of that is very, very toxic. And you factor in the heightened social media algorithms that love that. They're triggered by it. They'll promote it. That back and forth, it's only going to agitate the situation.
I ain't even play somebody who
Now
played.
you got to understand the team. You got to see the dynamics of that team. That team is strong. I mean, to your point, she haven't practiced. Like, she haven't been at camp. She haven't been at practice. So it's no disrespect to her of not making the team. It's the timing of the season. Right, it's the timing of the sport, right?
For college season,
college season, like it's a lot of things that have to start working together in order for everybody to be happy.
It's 9 players on that roster with Olympic experience, and half of those have probably won. Diana's won 5 times herself, so like that ain't no like, okay, I'm a rookie. That's beyond being a rookie. It's a freaking Olympic team, y'all.
Yeah, it's serious.
But market, should she be on there for
sports is.
It's not. Should she be on there?
And once again, with Monica, the only thing is this is a business. On the men's side, they had to deal with it too. Christian Laettner was on the team over Isaiah Thomas. This is a business. They want to take advantage of the eyes of the entire world on them. So it's almost like a marketing layup. You might as well take it.
And I'm only saying that because of the like where we at today in society, right? Should she be on there for branding purposes?
That's what it is.
Right?
Should she?
Everybody's thinking that part. Nobody's thinking you got to earn your way. You got to earn your keep. I got to get better. I got to develop. I got these ladies in front of me that I got to go. I have to go play. I have to prove myself to these. I still got to prove myself to these ladies every single night. So to be picked, and it's a lot different on the women's side than the men's side.
Mm-hmm.
The women's side being picked and selected for the national team is so tense and like so of a special moment because there's not that many of them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? So and they carrying on a certain tradition that they have to keep winning. They gotta understand it, right? So whether you the best player at the 12th man or the best player at the number 1 position, you have to earn your keep. And for me, honestly, I just don't think that. I think the timing fucks everything up for Caitlin.
Melo put it into perfect perspective right there. Not only from the player side, but also the business side. But from the women's player side, Melo just dropped gems right there. This is a perfect understanding. It definitely means more to them, and there is less spots. So that 12th spot is important.
Haven't been to camp, you haven't been, all of that.
Right.
And I think those ladies in front of you right now, they've been there, they earned it, they deserve it, and they're gonna go over there and win a gold medal. And you gotta wait your turn.
And still, if the first couple of names that come to mind in terms of, you could argue snubs, and we'll see what happens because we got to see what Chelsea Gray's health looks like. But Arike Ngumawala is a bucket.
Yeah.
I'm taking her over Caitlin right now, hands down, right? A different position, but Nneka Ogwumike has been snubbed a couple different times in terms of the Olympic team. And so even the women that are on the fringe that went to camp, like, you talking about going and taking somebody's spot?
That's different.
She's just not there yet.
Yeah.
And for me, the basketball of it all is so very important that the women's national team, I'm not gonna say doesn't need branding, but they've been good. They're gonna continue to be good.
Right.
And so the branding conversation, this is not a redeem team. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
It's more about the business now than the competition.
Right.
If it was just strictly about competition, then yeah, Caitlin, we respect that. But I feel bad for her in a sense because she don't think like that. Like, she wants to hoop, she want to compete. When she understands, I got to go through this process in order to get where I need to be. And it's gonna take time. It ain't gonna take 20 games. It ain't gonna take 20 games, bro.
I mean,
but I seen Taurasi coming in 04, right?
She's a different animal, though.
But what I'm saying is, so are you ready for that moment?
Yeah.
Right now is what I'm saying. The difference in those two coming into the WNBA.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The mindset that you had to have, like, she was ready for the physicality. She was ready for everything. The game was a lot different back then in the WNBA, but they was coming for her too. And she held it, and she held her own. And she created that, and we fell in love with her as we started to watch her develop and get comfortable with the game. I fall in love with the process, and I want to see the process of Caitlin. I want to see her development. I want to see how she grows. I want to see where she goes at with this.
I think
Next
Olympics.
Olympics.
Gonna be fine. Next Olympics.
But hey, it is all about the business nowadays, especially with streaming coming in. The WNBA having a lot of room to grow because streaming relies on a subscription basis month to month. So with them having 40 games now, they definitely want to expand it into the future with at least a 70 to 60 plus game season. And with the expansion teams coming in Toronto and also Golden State on the women's side, they got to squeeze every marketing opportunity that they can. Every drop of that juice, especially during the Olympics. That WNBA commissioner has a lot of tough choices ahead of her. She's going to have to make a lot of tough decisions and bite the bullet on it. Because it's not just about now, it's about the future girls coming in. You don't want the travel budget higher than all the teams' budgets combined. And you don't want the next superstar coming into the league that even after the boost that she provides, the league is still on pace to lose $50 million a year. So it's a lot of tough choices. David Stern for the NBA had to make tough choices in the early 2000s with the dress code and the league's image, but it pays off today. You see all the corporate sponsors, all these companies bidding on the NBA product because overall it's perceived as a safe, family-friendly environment. And that's what all these mega companies want. The business is the business, and hopefully for the ladies, they don't take it too personal. So the Lakers had a very interesting offseason. Not only they struck out on key notable free agents in Klay Thompson and DeMar DeRozan, They also hired a first-time coach in J.J. Redick, signed LeBron James' son, and pretty much have signaled to the Laker fan base they're on the business side of basketball, not necessarily on the winning side. And once LeBron James moves on to greener pastures, they will have to address of how they're going to maintain their winning standard as a legacy team like the New York Yankees and Manchester United, as well as the Boston Celtics. Because ever since the offseason of 2014, when they struck out on the LaMarcus Aldridge deal, they've been striking out on notable free agents ever since. Kawhi Leonard, Paul George originally wanted to go there, and now even offering Klay Thompson double the amount that he would make in Dallas, he still skipped over the Lakers. So the other players throughout the league have noticed that the Lakers have entered into the business of LeBron James. And J.J. Redick right here will insinuate that he never spoke to LeBron James about his hiring in LA. And being in the era of a lot of current and former players having their own media outlets, Shaquille O'Neal will provide receipts that when you are the big dog with the Lakers, everything goes through you. But first, let's check out what J.J. Redick had to say.
That you have a very close relationship with LeBron. He could have done a podcast with anybody in the world. He chose to do it with you. What was his advice to you throughout this whole coaching search process?
He didn't provide any advice. LeBron and I did not talk about the Lakers job until Thursday afternoon, about 30 minutes after I was offered the job. And that was very intentional on both our parts. You know, I knew I had an understanding that he did not want to be involved in this. And for me, I didn't want to go down the path of hypotheticals with someone that I consider a friend and someone that I have a great amount of respect for. So for us, it just came down to literally Thursday afternoon. And I talked to him for about 15, 20 minutes and got off the phone. That was it.
Now, all-time Laker Shaquille O'Neal, 3-time Finals MVP, 3-time NBA champion, and a regular season MVP with the Lakers, gave direct insight of how much control the head honcho gets when he's the captain of the Lakers.
You knew? Oh, yeah, I knew the whole time. And first, let me say this, because I wasn't aware until late. But it makes it look crazy that a guy with no experience can overshadow a guy like Sam Cassell, who's been in the league 15 years, this and that. So just let me say that. No disrespect to JJ, but I think Sam should also be able to get the same looks. But I'm happy for JJ. A lot of pressure. You know, winning games will not be good enough. Expectation when you take that job, when you take the Miami Heat job, when you take a job where there's a lot of talent, the expectation is to win championships.
That's a Laker expectation. That's the difference. That is a Laker expectation. A Laker, a Yankees, to a degree the Boston Celtics, even though they have more championships, it's not really as much of an expectation as the Yankees, Manchester United, and the Lakers. Their previous owners have set a standard that a season without a championship is a waste. That's the difference. That's what it means to be a Laker. And throughout this whole LeBron James experience with the Lakers, that standard has been forgotten.
What kind of coach is he? Don't know. I saw something funny on Instagram that said he was a assistant coach for a Brooklyn 4th grade girls team. That's his only coaching experience.
Yeah.
You know,
he coaches his son, I think.
For me as a player, if I didn't respect the coach, it was easy for me to turn my 100% down. Let me explain. I'm going to give you 100 anyway. But if it's a situation where I know we're not going to go, hundreds is hard to maintain. You know what I mean? That's why when I played for a guy like a Phil Jackson, I already knew his resume. So I knew, because I've sat there and watched him go to the finals 6 times with Michael and win 6 times. So if he says, stop doing this and do something else, I'm going to do it every time because he knows what he's talking about. That's why when I went to Miami, you play for a guy like Pat Riley. He says, do something, you do it, and it wins because I understand their resume. You know, for a guy like me who got all the blame when things didn't go right, if you didn't have that championship experience and I can question you, It was always hard for me to believe in you.
In that press conference, JJ said that he did not talk to LeBron about the job. Do you believe him?
Yeah, I'm starting a website called yeahright.com. Everything goes through LeBron at the Lakers.
They were doing a podcast together.
Exactly. Everything goes through LeBron, and I know that for a fact because when you're in that position as leadership, you get to know everything. So I was in that seat for a long time. Nothing went without my permission. The only time something went down without my permission is when they cut my head and traded me. And then Kobe took over, and nothing went down without his permission. So I know everything that goes on is definitely discussed with LeBron and Rich and those guys. So, it's professional of him to say that we didn't talk about it, but yeah, okay.
So there you go, from a legendary Laker who has done more for that franchise than LeBron James ever has. That's 3 straight championships, 3 straight finals MVP, and a regular season MVP. And even with all those standards, because the Lakers has so many legendary players, Shaq doesn't really get talked about enough about being an all-time Laker. That shows you the standards of that franchise. They got Magic Johnson, Kareem, Worthy, Kobe. Just like the Yankees, they have so many legendary players that people can at least make a valid argument of why 7 to 10 other guys are more valid than, let's say, a current player of today. There's very few franchises that have had all-time Hall of Famers like that, and the Lakers are one of them. So there is a standard with the Lakers that we sort of forgotten once LeBron got over there. But speaking of all-time Laker Hall of Famers, James Worthy accidentally still had his mic on when he thought he was off air during a radio show. This is what he had to say about the Lakers organization, them hiring JJ Redick, and also getting Bronny James.
Then they got the right coaches in there, and so they did it right. They took their time. They waited while we were trading Ingram, Randall.
Yeah, totally.
We fucking trading everything. A Pope gone.
Firing everybody.
The brother up in Sacramento, Malik.
Yep, everybody gone.
We were trading and then we wasn't getting anything for it. Westbrook gone.
Everybody.
So that the ink will.
Luke gone. Frank gone.
The ink will lead back.
Yeah, bro.
To the problem, which is in that infrastructure.
It's kind of crazy when you think about it.
Yeah, I got you.
3rd and 5 years.
No.
If you want to go before that, you could go 4 and 8 because Luke was 3 years, right? Yeah.
It's all happening.
3 and 5 sounds crazier to me.
It's all happening when Phil came here.
4 and 8's a lot. Perez, we did the math. 3rd coaching hire show in 5 years.
What's up, B? How you doing?
And then 4 and 8 if you count Luke.
Because
that was 3 years before.
All week. Well,
16 was Luke.
And Thursday. Back to back.
It's too much.
Yeah, man, they don't need me for that.
Do you want me this close to Geet?
Who we gonna be waiting for in the second day?
Dude, just wait till you to talk about it that night. We're gonna be dying, dude. It's gonna hurt us.
Well, he's the greatest young player ever right now. Bronny, that's what I'm gonna say.
Now, worthy mentioning that things started going different once Phil got there. I believe he's referring to when Phil arrived in more of an advisory role. That's when Jeannie fully took over. I believe her father just passed away, or he was becoming more sickly. Matter of fact, her father did pass away. That's when one of his wishes was to have his son kind of be the GM of the Lakers for about a year, and if it didn't work out, Jeannie could make a decision to move on. But the franchise was in flux. There was that period before Kobe had left in the last 2 years. They were in between one hell of a transition. And it wouldn't shock me if eventually Jeannie sells that team. But when it comes to LeBron James' long history, that resume has nothing but first year or just early into their career head coaches on that list. The one and dones. LeBron for most of his career has been a coach killer. Remember, Eric Spoelstra would have been fired had LeBron had his way in Miami. But Pat let him know that he was not the boss over there. The JJ Redick is looking like the right fit for what LeBron likes to have, a coach that doesn't necessarily have more power than him, or just doesn't have the gravitas to actually dictate things. But it is what it is. Eventually, the Lakers are going to have to make decisions on the basketball side of things once LeBron retires. They can't run away from the fact that they got their fan base accustomed to competing year in, year out for championships. And that is the standard. So ever since 2020, we've seen the NFL slowly creep into the NBA's real estate of having Christmas Day games. And now they recently struck a deal with Netflix in which they'll be airing 2 NFL games on Christmas Day, the Kansas City Chiefs versus the Steelers and the Ravens versus the Texans. And at the same time, these games will be available in those local markets for free. Now with streaming becoming the main source where people consume their content, we're seeing how the sports leagues are adapting to this, because removing themselves outside of traditional TV takes them away from a certain ecosystem that has been proven to work for the last 50, 60 years. And the money's always enticing to get them to leave that ecosystem. But now as the sports leagues begin to come over, we're going to slowly peel back the layers of within that ecosystem if they can even survive. Because for many other players outside of Netflix, streaming has not deemed to be profitable. And in this current landscape, we are witnessing Netflix beginning to change their business model from just only having a subscription-based model to an ad-driven model, very similar to Google and Facebook. Audiences could be targeted specifically, thus driving higher CPMs. A few of the players involved in streaming have an influx of cash like Amazon and Netflix, and an unlimited bandwidth for upcoming inventory. As we've seen the NBA as well as the NFL kind of expand their draft nights into a whole event, and that's really for streaming. The NBA added a whole second day just for second round draft picks, as well as the in-season tournament and the play-in. Those are all pieces of real estate that they can sell separately to the streaming services. And we could even mention things like All-Star Weekend, the dunk contest, the celebrity game, the All-Star game itself. These can be all sold off to streaming in separate packages. And keep in mind the potential for brand new revenue is almost unlimited as streaming is global. The internet connection gets you right into the platform. And this is where the NBA is trying to position themselves to be the leader of that forefront. They have a major edge on the NFL as far as the global appeal to the game, very similar to the game of soccer. The current media climate is in a state of transition, and it's not a mistake that we see outside players like Amazon and Netflix getting into more live events such as the Jake Paul-Mike Tyson fight, Formula One racing, etc. All these live events are helping these streaming companies gain an edge to help build out their in-house ad programs, very similar to Google AdSense and the way that Facebook does their ads. But the fellas at Sharp Tech gave some great insight to these dynamics playing out, especially with Netflix. You guys check it out, and every once in a while, I'll check in.
I think it goes hand in hand with this NFL news. I mean, I think they were kind of telegraphing this when I wrote after their last earnings that, look, Netflix is, I guess they're not going slow to some extent, but they were definitely signaling we have work to do to build out our ad network. And it was only ever going to make sense in the long run if they did it themselves. It just takes time to do that. And so it worked out to partner with Microsoft to start. They're also going to be partnering with multiple sort of ad providers, and they'll be orchestrating that. And it's to some extent, they will want to get fully into it's probably just their platform completely. I mean, the way digital ads do work in general is there's different ways to serve ads, but it can be sort of like a waterfall thing where you serve your ads first, then you serve ads from another network if you haven't filled your inventory, then you fill something else. And maybe that's the sort of approach they're going to take to make sure they have their inventory sort of filled, broadly speaking. But no, it's no surprise. It goes hand in hand with the NFL thing. It's just all about building out these capabilities and getting scale. And that's going to take a while. Building ad tech platforms is no sort of small feat. Facebook and Google are still dramatically changing and enhancing their ad platforms. They've been at it for 20 years and are way more sophisticated than anybody else. So no, I'm not saying it's going to take Netflix 20 years per se, but to get to where they want to get, where it's not just, like TV, here's some ads, put them on.
And unlike regular TV, their ads have to have a tracker. That's where Facebook and Google have a separation. The companies that are running ads, they can see the results from it. They could even track it if it has any leads to their website. All that is traceable with using Google Pixel, Facebook Pixel, etc. They have built-in ecosystems to make sure that these ads are even worth the spending dollars after a certain point. These are the types of things Netflix is going to have to build out. In a way, that's the conundrum of the streaming world. Any product like the NFL, the NBA, or even a piece of movie content, the ads that will be running are performance based, and Netflix has all that data. And the NBA, unlike the NFL, people are gonna have to click and find these games. I'm sure Netflix and other ecosystems like Amazon or even Apple, they would make sure it will be displayed in the forefront, but at the same time, these companies never had to compete with their product being shown with 1,000 other movies or just reality TV shows or documentaries at the same time. These are brand new dynamics that are at play.
So you have some sort of tracking, to have some sort of, ideally they would want to, because again, the goal is not just the NFL. The goal is that they have an at-scale advertising tier with tens of millions of subscribers or hundreds of millions of subscribers. And the way you really pay that off is not just you're selling ads like TV, but you can get into some sort of like self-serve interface. Or maybe they'll never do self-serve because, you know, it's a little dodgier as far as like, you know, brand safety and TV stuff and all that. But they want to have sort of a scalable system that people can not just buy ads, but also know who the ads are being shown to. That's the whole payoff from digital. Netflix knows every viewer. They can measure every viewer on an individual basis, and whatever they know about that viewer, they want to build profiles based on what that viewer views. Like what's all the different Netflix content they're interested in? How can they use that to align that with particular demographics or buying things? Now, it's going to be harder for Netflix to get into the conversion part, like how many of those ads actually converted, but they will want to build integrations with third-party measurement firms who do go out and do surveys and do try to tie that stuff together.
Oh, yeah.
The more stuff they can bring to bear about this, the higher price they can get for their ads. Because the more certainty an advertiser has the ad is working, the more they are willing to pay. That's the end game for all this digital advertising, is increasing price per ad, because as an advertiser, you're not thinking about how much an ad costs. You're thinking how much the ad costs relative to the return that you're getting from the ad. So if you can increase the guarantee or the expected value of the return, then you get higher prices. And you also get higher prices by having more people competing for those ads. So that's also about expanding the platforms, what have access. And again, it's a long journey. It can never be good enough. So they're signed up for building a team that's going to be doing this for a long time. But, you know, this is definitely a great way, in my estimation, to sort of get started. And that's what people should be worried about. They're just worried about Netflix fully engaged, coming from a position of strength into an area that they are also putting all their eggs in, which is sort of this streaming advertising space.
Now, within that space, it leaves you to wonder how the NFL structures some of these deals, because they know Netflix and other streaming services are collecting data on their consumers. Do they have something in place where they have access to that data? Perhaps they could better utilize their ad deals outside of the digital and screen space. The ads that they put in the stadiums or during press conferences. They could have an understanding, for example, of how people who like the Philadelphia Eagles loves to eat Doritos versus people who watch the Arizona Cardinals love to drink Mountain Dew. Knowing that information, they could really best utilize their advertisements outside of the television space. Sometimes it's not necessarily about the deals that the NFL or NBA gets from streaming, but it's about the terms.
So Netflix's wholesale model is the model that you want, which is you pay a fixed cost and then all the upside is yours. Now, that was the case for Hollywood, you know, years and years and years ago, and then talent over time negotiated their way into things like residuals, where they get sort of money as that content is reused over and over again. They can sort of take part in that. And I think, as I understand it, over the last this isn't completely new. Over the last few years, there has been a shift into some sort of residual-like payment structure, even for the streamers. But part of the issue was, or something's resold. Part of the issue was like, you know, where are the metrics? What's being shared? All those sorts of things. And I would say, be careful what you wish for. I think the reality is the world of streaming is so much different than linear television. This is part of why these companies were also insane to sort of abandon this beautiful business model. In linear TV, when you're on the cable bundle, there's a finite number of channels, and more importantly, there's a finite set of time. If you're on NBC at 9 p.m. on Thursdays, you're going to be a successful show. Now, of course, shows would not work, but that's because they weren't as successful sort of as they could have been. But when you're on streaming, there's an affirmative customer choice to go watch your show. It's not just because it's on. The customer has to go and watch it. And so what's happening is you're getting more akin to internet dynamics. It's not you're in the newspaper that is delivered to people's steps so they read it. No, they have to go to your website. They have to click on the article. They have to go see what is being read. And what we see on the internet with the dynamics is you get these very steep sort of exponential curves where if you hit it massively large. If you're medium, you're kind of okay, and everyone else is in the long tail. And the long tail in this case is might as well go on YouTube, right? Like so to the extent talent wants metrics in a world of streaming, it's going to work out exceptionally well for some of them. And I think it's going to be a real sort of cold splash of water for a bunch of other ones.
And we're seeing it play out with Paramount Plus, Peacock, Disney Plus, and to a degree, ESPN Plus. With them going direct to consumer, none of them have even come close to being profitable when it comes to streaming. They have to diversify their portfolios. Companies like Paramount and Peacock still licensing out shows. ESPN partnering up with gambling companies to open up ESPN bets and get into that industry. A lot of these players have quickly jumped into streaming, not quite understanding the consumer behavior outside of the traditional cable bundle. And again, unlike the NFL, I'm wondering how the NBA is going to really do when there's a Pelicans Orlando Magic game on. Are consumers really going to click on that? Or will another movie or just another choice will catch their eye at the bottom of the screen? This is a brand new barrier for sports leagues when you're looking outside of the lump sum of money that they got. And that's only if the streaming companies are going to be willing to share that information. Because best believe they're going to use those metrics in the next round of negotiations.
Right. Well, because before the barrier was just to get a movie made and to get it into the theater. Once you cross that much higher barrier, then yes, there was much more money made. And another thing you see in sort of market after market, right? Say you were selling software in the 1980s. You had to package up the software to be on a floppy disk or whatever it might be, had to get into Circuit City or like whatever sort of store, PC mall or whatever it would be selling on. And yeah, you would probably sell a decent amount, but the vast majority of people never cross that barrier. You fast forward to, say, the App Store, anyone can publish an app. What happens when you can publish an app? There's a whole lot of competition, right? And prices are driven down to zero. You don't have box software that is $50, $100, $200. You have 99 cents if you're lucky, or you're free and you have to get some, hope that you get people to subscribe or ads or whatever it might be. I speaking of the App Store, the Apple TV Plus in here is funny. Apple TV Plus is just a spoiler. Like they're in there just to muck stuff up. Apple's good about like customer acquisition. That's what they're they want to get people on their platform. But at the end of the day, this came up. I was thinking about this a lot when so YouTube they share their ad revenue with their creators, and it gives them an astronomical moat. But it is, frankly, it's tough on the economics. Like you're sharing 60% of your revenue directly with your creators or whatever the number is. And so you fast forward to a world of shorts, YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels or Facebook Reels, whatever it is, TikTok. And from a Facebook perspective, from a Meta perspective, you don't want to compensate creators. Like your whole business model is predicated on you get all your content for free, and then you get to have ads around that. So YouTube is talking about, we got to do a revenue share on shorts, right? And it's actually a hard problem because it's what do you attribute the ad to? Like if you're watching a YouTube video and they show an ad in the middle of it, and then you keep watching the YouTube video, it's clear who is driving the view of that ad. So, but I think there's an aspect of YouTube wants to do it, not just because that's also sort of their brand as far as creators go, but also they're in third place and they can really screw with TikTok and Facebook to the extent
Sweeten the pot,
there's an expectation that creators are going to get compensated, which Facebook does not want to be in that game at all. That's a very slippery slope as far as their entire sort of cost structure is concerned.
And it shows you they're willing to muddy up the waters the same way Tidal came out of nowhere and got in between Spotify and Apple Music. They could never really gain market share, but they were sort of in the way. Very similar to what the ABA did to the NBA. You had a bunch of investors come together and take up market share, but not necessarily the whole pie, and the NBA had no choice but to come through and buy them out in order to get them out the way. The Brooklyn Nets, the Indiana Pacers, and there's a few other teams in the league. They're extensions of the ABA. I believe some of those families still get paid out of the NBA teams today. Some of the minority team owners of the Pacers are from those families. But as you can see, the in-house ad tech is the way to go, and Netflix as well as Amazon are trying to build that up. And they need inventory, and they're handing out a lot of money right now for the current moment. But make no mistake about it, in the future, once they wheel those companies in, and them realizing they have to compete on a whole nother level to regain audience attention, it's going to be very interesting to see how they play their positions. This is a very good pivot for Netflix, moving away from the subscription-based model, because eventually it's going to hit a ceiling. And this year, they released statements saying that they will no longer announce their subscriber counts. So it all makes sense for them to start building out an ad tier to diversify their revenue. The only real question that's left is if Netflix and Amazon will let the sports leagues have access to that data. Now, with the new CBA coming into play, we're going to watch a brand new dynamic play out in real time between the NBA owners and their franchise superstars. And the dynamic I'm referring to on the superstar side is he really willing to make the sacrifice to win a championship, as far as taking a slight pay cut so his team can put the proper pieces around him. And at the same time, will the franchises stay loyal to that star if he does achieve this by giving X player a max deal on the back end to make the math all work? So NBA fans in real time will get to see if their favorite superstar is really about championships, or is he really about the money? As Jalen Brunson set a new precedent by taking a pay cut, $150 million for 4 years with an early player opt-out, sacrificing his ability to re-up next summer for about $100 million on top. While Gilbert Arenas, Rashad McCants, and former New York Knick Kenyon Martin gave great insight to this. You guys check it out, and every once in a while, I'll check in.
You talking about friendly? Ooh, my God. Ooh. Ooh, that was friendly. Because if he just played the end of the year, that would have been at least 270.
Yeah, you could have got the 270.
And then they wouldn't be able to sign nobody else.
No, like just any, if you look at any franchise, if you look at any dynasty, it's off of contracts like this, right? It's usually
correct. If you take a look at the San Antonio Spurs, with Tim Duncan always taking a pay cut. Same thing for the Golden State Warriors, getting lucky with Stephen Curry having ankle injuries in the early portion of his career, which allowed the Warriors to snag him for a low price on a 4-year deal. And you combine that with them having perfect timing for the cap to go up in 2017 because of the new TV deal. So a lot of moving pieces sometimes has to come together in the right moment. And you can even look at the Chicago Bulls dynasty. Scottie Pippen was on a very, very cheap deal.
usually not a player that's designed it. It's just circumstances happen. They lowballed somebody. Someone got hurt, got him for a cheap deal. So the fact that he did sacrifice as a healthy player this much money to keep building shows, what type of commitment he has to winning itself. So, I mean, I commend him. I wouldn't have did it. They're going to have to have another contract waiting for me under. Because, I mean, this is the NBA. This is a business, and you can't trust anybody. So I would have signed it. If I would have signed that deal he just did, there would be another one in 4 years that I would already put some building, something. I would have had something.
What Jalen did has set a brand new precedent for players that are always talking about they want to win championships, like Joel Embiid, Giannis out in Milwaukee, Donovan Mitchell, Anthony Edwards, Luka, and even LeBron James. This makes his brand new contract look funny in the light only if he says he's trying to win a championship. So Brunson, very early on into this new CBA, has set a crazy precedent just to kick this off.
He is one of the people that's taking an actual pay cut.
Yeah.
This is not like they got you for a cheap deal, that you're taking a pay cut.
My thing is he got his team, like his college teammates on the team, man. So I think that's plays a big factor in it.
That is right. Like they got to get paid.
They got to get paid. So they won together before. They here now. So I can get this and still. I think that played a big part in it.
Jalen Brunson, I believe him and his dad and the integrity and
the things that they look and expect from themselves, I think we can all look and say y'all did the Knicks a service and did yourselves a disservice, but I think that they look at it through another lens. Like, money is money, but winning is a whole different caliber of energy.
Facts. That is 100% facts, and it makes you look at the Paul George deal quite different in Philly. Was he willing to take a slight cut, maybe to allow them to get a different caliber role player to surround him, Maxey, and Embiid? He stated that the Clippers gave him a low ball offer. It leaves you to wonder how he approached it, if he was willing to take that cut, had they bought in the right pieces to put around them. These teams now with the new CBA will have the sort of leverage to actually expose these type of things. Being known as a franchise with a disgruntled star, they could expose these things. Hey, he wasn't willing to take a pay cut so we could actually build a championship team around him. Once again, all this is a brand new dynamic that's going to play out with this new CBA. We're going to see teams pulling tricks out of the hat to make this salary cap work for them, especially the championship contending teams like the Denver Nuggets and the Boston Celtics, and even to a degree the Minnesota Timberwolves.
With the Knicks.
Especially, I mean, think about the credit. Yeah, the credit he'll get to reviving that. But if they go get some other pieces that can really push them towards championship for the Knicks, he'll be cemented forever with them, above everybody that's ever been there. I don't want to frown upon the move because it's money-based, but I see if the Knicks don't capitalize on him doing this, then it's a failure. Then it's like, you should have got the money. But I feel like with their front office and what they've been doing throughout this whole last 2 seasons, they can make something happen, pick up somebody good with this contract.
It also adds the added pressure on the Knicks to deliver, not only to put the right pieces around Brunson, to actually pivot off that piece in case things go wrong. This scenario right here is not only about the Knicks, it's going to put the onus on a lot of franchises if they have that star that's willing to make that sacrifice to win. Once again, NBA teams and their franchise stars will be put in a very interesting situation we never seen play out before.
You know, what he did right now is a beautiful thing for the organization, because I don't think they would have been in a championship window if this didn't happen.
Yeah,
facts.
Right? Because what they can do with the money he saved is they can go get franchise players. Just like Steph was a franchise player, right? And they went and got Kevin Durant.
Mm-hmm.
They can do that. This franchise can actually go out and they can go sign an Embiid. They can go out and sign a Luka because they have that much money. They have franchise money. Now the problem is this.
Now, the way the league is headed right now with the influx of talent, especially guys coming over 6'7", 6'8", with ball handling skills, shooting ability from multiple areas throughout the perimeter, and they could finish at the rack. With that much talent coming in globally, it might make sense for these teams to actually go out, not necessarily get a superstar, but get a fourth key contributing player along with someone to come off the bench that could really cause some damage. You could look at the way the Boston Celtics are designed as a prime example, and also to a degree the Minnesota Timberwolves. And what hurt the Denver Nuggets in these past playoffs was them not having enough depth. The top heavy rosters in this new CBA, things are going to be very tough for them. You could look at the Milwaukee Bucks, the Phoenix Suns, and depending on what Philly does for the next few seasons, they might fall into that category if their franchise don't pull the proper roster moves. Their windows for having too many errors and also making things work in time to execute on Embiid's prime before he becomes that injury-riddled player, that window is very finite.
Now the problem is this. When 4 years is up, what's the chances of them giving him?
Yeah.
I don't give a fuck what his numbers is. What's the chances of them giving him that $300 and that $400 million deal?
And that's
if
they got to have a championship.
You think it
even if they have a championship,
if they have a championship, absolutely.
You give him half a billion?
Absolutely.
Because he's the reason why.
Yeah. He's the reason why.
He's the reason why.
But
solely.
But is Dolan that?
Absolutely.
But is Dolan that loyal?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, he's loyal. Okay.
No, one thing he gonna do now. He might not know shit about basketball, but he gonna spin.
You're right.
Fucking listen.
Knicks do spend their money.
That is hands down the best organization I've fucking played for, bro.
Like, far as taking care of players and everything. Oh, they don't spare a penny, dog. They don't cut no corners with taking care of their guys.
Now, more than likely, even if the Knicks don't win a championship, but they come close to it, or just have at least competitive seasons and Brunson is still hitting his numbers, they'll give him that 10-year vet supermax. And with Brunson getting that contract, he'll pretty much make up for what he missed out by signing that 4-year, $150 million deal. But the real question is, are NBA franchises really going to have that type of loyalty? We seen Pat Riley not give D Wade a max deal, not only after winning a championship by himself and winning Finals MVP, but bringing LeBron on and bringing 2 more championships to the franchise. Pat Riley was still reluctant to give him a max deal. So not every franchise will have that code, but once again, Kmart, he's played for the Knicks, and he's expressed that they do have that franchise loyalty for their own guys. But these new CBA rules are tricky, and these franchises are going to be crunching down numbers like they're the IRS. Well, you fellas definitely check out the description below. Hit up the mailbag with any questions you have. And until next time, you guys stay safe. Peace.